was, all the officers testified that I was holding a large conch shell in my hand, and that the mayor was in immediate danger
of being conched to death.
Yeah.
because I was holding this poo in my hand. If anyone knows anything about Hawaiian culture, a poo is not used as a weapon, you know. It is true that it did get broken at one point, but that was an accident. But it's been well used.
For people on the continent that we used to call the mainland, show us. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to blow it in here necessarily.
But
Don't make the cut.
go for it.
That's great.
I guess that's what they were scared of.
That's
what they didn't like in Hawaii. It's an ancient law. It was here long before the illegal occupation of Hawaii by the United States of America. And for those of you who don't know out there, Hawaii has been militarily occupied completely illegally according to United States law and international law since 1893. What was I saying? I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so Kanawai Mamahoi Kalamai. It has been recognized by the state constitution and in fact is at the center of the badge of the Honolulu Police Department. And that is not an accident. The reason for that is because Kanawai Mamalahoi, I think, first of all, it's important to understand what a kanawai is. Fundamentally, before, in the most ancient times, before even oral history, we the people know that the ancient people of this land lived communally, and the word kanawai means the sharing of water. So it's how people fed themselves, by sharing the water collectively that came down from the mountains to the sea, and our economic system traditionally is based on what's called aloha. There's no money. It's a shared system, a gift economy, if you will, in which people give freely, and that's how our economic system traditionally works. Now, since this illegal occupation has been in place, and even before that, because there was colonial exploitation that was happening even before that, the kanawai there was a whole new thing based on the laws that came up in the later years. So, Kanawai Mamalahoi, basically, it's the law of the splintered paddle, and it was enacted by Kamehameha I, the first king of Hawaii, when he was encountering a couple of fishermen. This is when he was rising to power, and he basically bullied them. He ran after them and was going to kill them. So, luckily for them, he caught his foot in the lava. This is on the Big Island where there are a lot of rough terrain, and he was stuck. So the fishermen, in order to save their own lives, turned around and hit him over the head with a canoe paddle, because, otherwise he was going to get out of that lava eventually and kill them. He didn't die though. He's a very, very tough guy, to put it lightly. And soon after that, he became king. When he became king, the very first law that he made was called Kanawai Mamalahoi. He called those fishermen to him, and he said, I was wrong. I was wrong. Those people had every right to defend themselves. And so the first law of this land is going to be the law of the splintered paddle, that no government, no one with power shall abuse the people. They shall not disturb someone who sleeps by the roadside Yeah, occupy. We're familiar with this, which is how this ties in, right? That someone may sleep in the road, according to Kanawai Mamalahoy, and without threat of harm by a government force. It's a very, very strong law. It says, disobey and die. That's the last line. Heva no make is the last line of Kanawai Mamalahoy. And of course, for myself, I'm a peacemaker. I'm completely against violence. I never advocate for killing in any form. And yet, at the same time, we're under a government system that is not a person, and it's essentially a corporation that's run by business interests, run by military, that is occupying our land with violence. So that system, yes, it needs to fall. It's broken the Kanawai, and it needs to fall. It needs to be gone so that we can create our own system, our renew what we've always had and what we need to have for the future. So that's
what brings you to Court Gourmet.
Oh yeah, that. Sorry, short explanations are not my strong point.
Good though. Go ahead.
So essentially, what happened was that we had a banner that was painted by an international indigenous artist named Raul Gonzalez. And Raul, out of the goodness of his heart, painted this beautiful banner for our use, the first display of which was to be on May 1st, because there was a general strike and essentially a ceremony down at Thomas Square, which is also a very significant place in Hawaiian culture and history. It's where Kawikeo Uli, who this building is named after, uttered the phrase "Ua mau ke ea o ka aina i ka pono," or the ea, the sovereignty, the life breath of the land is perpetuated forever through pono, through righteousness, through justice. And anyway, basically,
was a beautiful banner.
Yeah, it is a beautiful banner, and we do have it back now.
That was on a Sunday afternoon, I think.
So the paint wasn't even dry on that banner, and the city took it ostensibly under a law that said that property that was stored on in a city area for more than 24 hours is subject to being tagged and removed. Like I said, the paint wasn't even dry on this banner. It was painted, and then,
And it wasn't tagged.
It wasn't tagged. It was simply taken. It was a theft. So the city came in. They specifically targeted that and a banner that said "Ua mau ke ea o ka aina i ka pono," which I've explained, and one that said "Pacific Sustainability," done by artist Michael Daly, and took those banners and refused to return them. And I spent the entire next day, that entire day, on the 30th, on the phone, trying to get those banners back. I did talk to Wesley Chun, who took them, essentially.
And he's the director of the Department of Facilities Maintenance for the
Yes.
city of Honolulu.
Yes, and so he's a pretty big person in the city government. Anyway, he refused to give them back. And I had a witness that said that they actually saw them in his office. But he refused to give them back, even though he knew very well they hadn't been tagged or anything. So essentially, the city was saying that it did not need to follow the law. It wasn't going to follow the law. It had no intention of following the law. All this time, I was also trying to reach Mayor Carlisle all day long. It didn't happen. The secretary kept relaying that, she was trying, but he wouldn't speak to me. So the next day was May Day. My mother and my child, basically my whole family, goes to Laulani Park every year, which is kind of an interesting thing because there's often strikes and stuff on it because it's International Workers' Day, but it's the one day I absolutely cannot strike because I have to work with my mom. She's a traditional lay maker. And she goes there every year and shares Hawaiian culture. And so she was down there. I had to go with her. And the best I could do in order to stay pono was to call for an awareness building over Kanawai Mamalahoi and what had happened. And also to try to seek out Mayor Carlisle and see if he would, at the time I didn't really think about him being there actually, but once it was clear that he was gonna be there that day, that became part of our purpose too, was to just try to ask him, what is the procedure so that I can get this banner back? I still had hope that I'd be able to bring it down to the event where I committed to the artist and to the people that I would bring it to. So these folks here, some of the folks who are here right now, came down with me to support me in doing that, in basically saying, look, real Hawaiian culture is based on pono. It's based on pono. This is not pono. Stealing the kanawai is not pono, or any semblance of that. It's not pono. How can I, as a cultural practitioner, as a lay maker, amongst many other cultural practices I do, how can I sit there and make lays while tourists walk by, and I have aloha for the tourists. Every year we teach them how to make leis along with the local people. We don't discriminate, we just teach everybody and share with everybody. My mom gives away tons of stuff, but the point there is that, oh, thanks, Craig. The point there is that how can I go and practice that culture and not be true to the real culture that I need to stand up for? That's the real culture that is practiced by people like Mr. James Raposa of Kea'au, who was evicted from his home while he was a caretaker of a beautiful little fish pond. People like that, people like many of the other, Chantel, the sister down at Occupy, who lives down in the south part of the park. Those people who have been driven out of their own homeland because they can't afford to live in their own native land, And for those who are out there on the street or out on the aina because they have no alternative, for whatever reason. How can I ignore that part of the law, that the kanawai, and also Niopio Kolovalu, which was decreed by Kakuhi Hewa, which is even older than the kanawai Mamalahoi, and that from our old Oahu chief specifically says that if people are hungry, you will feed them. If you encounter a hungry person, you will feed them. If they have needs and you see that, you will help them. It's the law of this land is hospitality, but not this fake kind that the tourist industry has been promoting, but real, true sharing amongst the people, by and for the people, taking care of each other. That's the real aloha. So anyway, sorry, I know
Did
kind of
you get
long.
to take this message to the mayor on that day?
No. I tried, but I was kind of stopped in the process. So we did attempt to speak with the mayor because we were made aware of his presence. He was out there shaking hands in the crowd. We have it on videotape. He was being a mayor. So we figured, hey, public official, public place. I'm the public, I think, and so I attempted to speak with him, but apparently I was specifically on the list of hands he was not going to shake that day, apparently, and I was not allowed to ask him a question. So I was asking the police why I couldn't go forward. I just simply wanted to know. I wanted a good legal reason for not being able to go forward. They were not able to provide me one, and then they said I was causing a disturbance by being there. I lowered myself and I was doing a prayer because I didn't want to block anybody's view. They basically, they're large men, and they were blocking the view by being there. And so
And we have that on
essentially
video.
they arrested me for causing a disturbance because they were blocking the view. That's what the essential point here was. So, I couldn't, in all sense of pono, I really couldn't do otherwise. I just simply kind of darted out of the area and sat down amongst other public who were already seated on the ground. I just sat amongst the crowd, basically, and for that I was arrested.
Right.
But they didn't tell me I was under arrest.
You also
They
injured
said,
them.
come on the side and talk to us.
If you had a chance to speak to Mayor Carlisle, what would you have asked him?
I would have asked him if there were any way, any reasonable way, that I could get back the banner that his employees had illegally seized from Thomas Square. I'm willing to look at it as a mistake. It could have been an honest mistake, I don't know. But one way or another, it wasn't done legally. I had already made Wesley Chun aware of that, and basically I just needed the banner back so that we could conduct the ceremony on schedule.
So today's hearing was continued again for the second time, I guess.
Yeah.
And when's the date for, when is it scheduled now?
October 17th, right?
October
Is that right?
17th.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.